the suits behind the industry always get a bad reputation. And yet these are the guys that have always created the industry.
Yeah.
These are the guys that saw not this would be a great thing to contribute to the world, but I could make a couple of dollars selling these coin operated machines.
Yep.
Because if it wasn't for the business guy, the rest of it falls apart.
Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we unpack the messy, beautiful intersection of creativity and business with the artists, marketers, and founders shaping our culture. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made, and I'm the host of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Past guests include Stefan Sagmeister, two-time Grammy-winning designer and founder of Sagmeister Inc., Debbie Millman, the designer and host of the Design Matters podcast, and Cheryl Platts, author of the Game Development Strategy Guide. I'm forever grateful for the supporters of this podcast, and we are always open to more sponsors that align with our brand. That said, Pixel Retentive is brought to you by Epic Made. Epic Made is a strategic creative studio helping brands turn big ideas into unforgettable animated content, campaign visuals, and story-driven creative that actually connects and turns viewers into fandom. We work with the best brands in gaming, entertainment, tech, and pop culture to make their ideas feel bigger, clearer, and harder to ignore. So if your brand has a campaign, launch, pitch, or story that needs to stand out, visit epicmade.net and let's make something epic together. All right, so with us today, we have Larry Kuperman. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Hi, Carl.
Really pumped to have you. So a little intro on Larry. Larry helped build Nightdive Studios into one of the most respected names in game preservation, bringing classic titles like Doom and The Thing back to life for modern audiences. With over a 25-year career in the games industry, he has played a key role in bridging the past and future of interactive entertainment. Having recently retired from Nightdive, Larry continues to advocate for the preservation of gaming history and volunteers with IGDA, contributing to the broader health and sustainability of the industry. Awesome, man. Tried and true gamer you're for years and years. I feel like it's a fair statement there.
Well, yeah, I like to say that what success I've had is attributable to consistency and longevity, or to put it in a shorter fashion, just sheer stupid stubbornness.
I love that. I have a similar statement when I talk about my career as an entrepreneur and building my business. And it's just like I'm either brave or stupid, and I can't tell which one, but I just keep going.
The
So
lines kind of get blurry after a while.
they're clearly not mutually exclusive. And I don't know why I can't talk today, but I'm just pushing through. So here we are. So, Larry, I'm really excited to dive into some of your experience in the gaming industry and just some of the work you've done and, what motivated you all these years and all the things. So, before we jump into today's topic, I would love to know what originally pulled you into games and what project are you most proud of so far?
Wow, those are two great questions. So I know the moment that I got interested in games, 1991. I bought my first home PC. Let me rephrase it. My first home Windows PC. My first home PC was a Commodore 64. That I used for business purposes. I was living in New York at the time and using my C64 and a blazing fast Hess 300 baud data modem. I could connect to the computer at in Lower Manhattan where I was taking master's classes, so I didn't have to schlep downtown to my work. I could sit in my apartment in the Bronx and code away in BASIC, which was like that was when I first knew that I was really a nerd. But I got my first Windows computer in '91, and
Super badass, by the way. No one was doing that in '91. Like that was way ahead of everybody. So, yeah.
You had to load the instruction set for the modem every time you went to use it, and the instruction set was on a cassette that was indistinguishable from an audio cassette. I mean, this was primitive technology then.
Love
But
it.
moving to the modern era, I bought a PC that came with Windows 3.1, and I was really big into shareware. I bought all of those cover mounts. I mean, so for the younger people in the audience, all of the companies that were releasing games pretty much had a shareware version of it. It would be maybe the first two or three levels, or some features would be broken on it. But Carl, the secret of you know the dark secret that I've shielded from the audiences of the faithful of the Night Divers. I suck at games, so I couldn't make it.
I
I couldn't make it through level 3 anyway, so it didn't matter that I only got the first three levels. No, but along that way, one of the games that I got via shareware was Wolf 3D, and
Wolf 3D
Wolfenstein
Wolfenstein.
3D.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Great. Perfect.
too many years of working with Bethesda. So Wolfenstein 3D, the Romero Carmack, classic, and I it was an epiphany when I realized that it was my hand holding the gun, and that I was playing a Jewish POW whose ultimate mission was to kill zombie Hitler. I mean, I was there. I was there for it. I mean, it was
I love
clear.
it.
So that was a moment that I began to see the potential of games, but it would take me close to a decade before I joined the industry. I had I did suit and tie sales for a long time. My first career, I guess, was in the medical field, but I wasn't a healer. I was the exact opposite. I was the guy that called you up and said, "Carl, if you don't pay this outstanding bill, we're gonna have to turn grandma's oxygen off, and I don't know if that's gonna work for her." So,
Talk about a job you don't love. Holy
well,
shit.
so I did that in the 80s. To add to that, that was during the AIDS epidemic period, and we didn't know how
Right.
AIDS was transmitted. So it was that. But believe it or not, that was better than the job that I had before then,
Oh.
because in the late 70s, I worked for 2 years at a maximum security psychiatric facility. Um,
Ooh.
which I will tell you, the experience of working with that population really prepared me for managing developers. I kid, folks. I kid.
I love
Listen,
it.
listen. I'm 2 months retired now. I mean, any filters that I had are long gone. Um,
I love
and
it.
uh, and I figure, what's the worst they can do to me? They can't fire me anymore.
They
So,
cannot.
uh, so there's that. But no, seriously. I mean, I did that stuff. And I was involved in healthcare, this receivable stuff, this bill stuff. I mean, I did dialysis centers, hospitals. I mean, large programs. I was involved in the accounting side of it, but I started out really in the trenches. Um, that said, in the in at a certain point, my two interests of computerization and medical kind of merged, and I was running my own billing company from my basement. So even in the '90s, I was doing work from home. But time went on, and I was living in Michigan, the father of two children, um, married, and I got a newsletter from a company called Stardock, and Stardock had in there an ad for a sales manager to come sell their software. And it had in there, "Come work in beautiful Livonia, Michigan, where it's always sunny and 72 degrees." This was in December in Michigan. it was neither sunny nor 72 degrees. So I wrote that back, and it started a correspondence, and Angie Marshall asked me if I could come in to meet with Brad. And I did, and I showed up that first day in a suit, with a lot of gold bling and black lace-up shoes, typical sales guy
Yep.
thing. And Brad told me about what they did at Stardock. And it was really, we were talking about the software, about window blinds and direct skin and other products. But he did mention that they also had a gaming division.
Oh,
I was en route. I was changing from one job to another job in the sales thing, and I had to call up the second job and say, "I'm sorry, but I can't accept your offer. I've changed my mind. I'm going to go do this crazy thing and go to work for this game company in Livonia, Michigan." And I did that. I was at Stardock for 11 years. The last three of which, my major focus was Stardock's Impulse software. Carl, do you remember that? Does that ring a bell for you? So Impulse was, but so let me back up. Stardock was an early leader in providing software as a service, and then adopted that same model to providing games as a service. Um, Impulse was essentially, for want of a better explanation, a Steam competitor. And
okay.
for a while, it was the number two Steam competitor. And I was the guy that was in charge of signing developers, signing people up. And my clients went all the way from the EAs and the Activisions to a lot of indies. Over the next 5 year period, I would sign something like 600 partners onto Impulse.
Wow.
It was sold to GameStop, and I would join GameStop for a couple of years, and that Impulse client became known as the GameStop client. Um, by the way, there's a warning about preservation there, because if you were one of the many people that had games on Impulse, that had digital games on Impulse, in many cases, when GameStop pulled the plug on it, those titles were lost to you.
Ooh, that's a
Um,
lot.
so that was, but the intro was it because I received this random email from Stardock, and I responded to it.
Hmm, that's amazing. So
It Go ahead, man.
yeah, no, I love it, man. So, I love the idea that you're talking about preservation and getting into that a little bit more. Like you mentioned, like people lost their games there. Like, what do you think it's like? I know you think this is a critical issue. Why so much right now in the industry?
So, first of all, it's being waged legislatively. The now California has just passed a resolution. I don't believe it's a law yet, but they've just passed something politically, or at least it's going through one of the houses, that games as a service games, that if you've purchased a game as a service, that it can't be made to disappear.
Oh,
So
great.
the marathons. Well, I remember that I was an evil business development guy for most of my career in games. So
Sure.
let me push back on that.
Okay.
You're an indie developer. You spend 4 or 5 years working on the game of your dreams. It's an MMO, an MMORPG, whatever it is. It's the game of your dreams. You release it, and the first month there's pretty good traffic. The second month, not so much. The third month, it's clear that people are losing interest to it. Now, the back end of it is not mysterious. You're paying for that those
Service based.
services,
Yep.
right? I mean, one way or another, you have this expense, and you say, "Well, look, my costs per month are exceeding my revenues. I want to get
Yeah.
out from under this. I want to dump it." And you're now told, well, you can't. Even if you want to stop paying for that, you have to open it up to the fans. And you say, but wait a minute. I wanted to use this game that had certain great elements as the basis for my next game. I don't
Got
want to
it.
be competing with myself, you know. So, and it comes down to that issue of who owns the games.
Right.
And while it sounds like a silly issue, it really is a complicated one. I can
It
understand
is.
fans who've bought into a game, who've made investments even in time in a game, feeling that they have some ownership to it.
Yeah.
And I gave you a deliberately sympathetic story, the poor indie developer who can't. But no, it's not it. But your accountant says, "Hey, man, you can get more money putting the money someplace else. Just kill this game, and maybe 3 4 years from now you'll bring it back." Well, you're told, well, you can't kill it because it's now going to be owned by the fans. And when you eventually decide to release a sequel or something else in that universe, you're competing with yourself. So
Interesting. Yeah. The details are never simple when it gets into this type of thing. And it's something on the surface that like, oh, that sounds great, right? That was my instant reaction. And then when you just peel back a couple layers, it's like, maybe it's not just great. Like maybe it's more complicated than that. That makes a lot of sense. Um, so aside from indie developers, is there any other like aspects of this that you think are? I know you've spent some time bringing back classics and doing things that are like really iconic, and I love that. If you're a super nerd like me, you may or may not have had some emulators over the years, and sort of done things on the other side of that coin. But why do you think like intentional game preservation is so important for those older titles and those types of things?
well, I usually have a kind of soapbox speech, and there's a lot of truth to it, but forgive me if I sound like I am using fancy words when an ordinary one will do, or what's the fancy word for that? Pontificating. Um,
Yeah.
so so look, short version of it is this: if games are art, there's no longer any need for any discussion about that.
100%.
We all kind of realize that they're in museums. When you look at the history of any form of art, there are certain pioneers that you're going to study. Well,
Yeah.
I'm just not sure that if if you're going to study theater, something that I studied, it's an art form. If you want to learn how to be an actor, you're going to have to read Konstantin Stanislavski at some point. You're gonna there are certain requirements. You certainly can't go into theater and say Shakespeare, never heard of him. Um,
Right.
there are certain things that you need to have, and they're the greats of the industry, the foundational people that you're expected to learn about. Well, the foundational people are in many cases still with us. Some of them have passed, and we've lost the opportunity to talk with them about that. But the reason that you study them is because to know how to get to the next thing, you have to look at where it started from and to see the pattern, to see the evolution. You have to see the way it's moving forward. So,
Yeah.
when you think about the people that made our early games, I mean, this isn't like you have to study thousands of years of history,
No.
right? If you want to talk about, if you want to talk about gaming, I just wrote an article a couple of months ago for a magazine on Ralph Baer. Ralph Baer is the guy that made the brown box. Interesting story. His family fled Germany before Hitler took over, came to America. Even as a teenager, he was interested in electronics. He creates the first prototype of a console, 1967, 1968, the brown box. And of the games that he puts on I mean, he's got the hardware there. He's built the hardware. Now, what does he have to show it? Because even then, you can't sell a console without that killer game, right?
Right.
I mean, nothing
100%.
nothing has changed all these years later. So
Nothing.
what game did he have to show, on the first prototype of a console? Ping pong.
Pong. Yeah.
And
100%.
there is a direct connection to Ted and to Nolan over at Atari. seeing this and saying, "Hey, there's something here."
That's amazing. And
Uh,
Atari was the first time I got to game, and it was a little dated by the time I picked it up, in '91 or so, because I was born in '85. So, yeah, and then I've been hooked ever since, and I've it's been fun on my side of the house to just see the evolution of games, and then become an adult, and then become a middle-aged man, still playing games, now playing games with my kid, and he games more than I do, which is frustrating, but it's only because of time. I
Well,
love playing games. So.
and Atari is such a great story, and one of the things that I'm proudest of is because we all, not all of us, but a whole lot of us in the gaming industry have Atari somewhere in our background, in our pedigree as being influential,
Yeah,
whether it was Space Invaders. I mean, I can't look at Space Invaders without thinking of our late great um, Burger Becky Heineman, who passed away last year, and Space Invaders. But you think about that, and you think that you're living in a time when Wade Rosen has brought back the Atari brand, and Atari is doing new cool retro stuff.
it is.
You
Yeah,
know, I mean, whoever thought that in the year 2026 we'd be talking about Bubsy again.
right.
So shout out to those guys. And I think we're looking at business models that I should back up for a second.
Sure.
Carl, if I have one point to make on this podcast and all of them, it's the suits behind the industry always get a bad reputation. And yet these are the guys that have always created the industry.
Yeah,
These are the guys that saw not this would be a great thing to contribute to the world, but I could make a couple of dollars selling these coin operated machines.
yep,
Because if it wasn't for the business guy, the rest of it falls apart. Um,
100%.
I, I always took pains to explain that there was a direct connection between what I did as head of business development, and that paycheck that you got. That's where that came from. So when I asked you to do the impossible things, I mean, let's face it, at every game company, every developer dreads seeing the business guy head over to their desk, literally or virtually. Um,
Sure.
one of the interviews I did a number of years ago, and it's always funny quoting myself, but in game development, the longest journey often starts with the words, "You know what else would be cool?"
Yeah, for sure. And then the whole project unravels and changes and goes in a different direction. And yeah,
And
that's
pretty soon you're doing Duke Nukem Forever. There
yes.
it goes.
God, Duke Nukem was so good, and I feel like Duke Nukem and Doom were both games that I played on the floppy demo because that's like all I had access to for a while. And man, just fun games. I went back and played Duke Nukem probably, I don't know, like a decade ago, and I was like, this is wildly inappropriate for the age that I was playing. It's like my parents didn't care. I wouldn't care if my kid was
So
playing either, but
so there's that. I've been on the other side of it. I was the parent whose son played Duke Nukem, and found the burlesque sequence in the movie theater to be disturbing the first time. Um, he's now gainfully employed at the largest financial services company in the world as a front end developer. So I couldn't have done all that bad a job, right?
did a great job for sure.
Didn't corrupt him that much. And I think there's a whole generation of internet savvy people, you know, that I mean, guys that creating the infrastructure that got that at first experiences as part of Counter-Strike clans.
Yeah,
You know, you know,
that's for sure. And I was like I got my real like entrepreneur hustle, buy, sell, like make things and leadership skills. I really cut my teeth playing EverQuest and running a raiding guild and like farming and knowing like, oh, I got to do these things over and over and over again, and I can make these things with these different components and they rare drops, and then if I go over to here, I can sell them over here, and if I sell those, I can buy this thing for that, and then I can do that over here, and then sell it for even more money, and like that whole mentality evolved for me in a video game. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh well, I got to get these better things. So let me get all my friends together. I'm like, I guess we're gonna make a guild, and I guess well, we got to have balanced classes, and I got to be good at a thing, and they're good at a thing, and then we coordinate all of it, and then I get really good at typing. I can still type like 100 words a minute because no one could even had headsets because I'm on dial-up modem and could barely
That's
zone into
right.
the freaking zone. So you got 20 of your friends in there, and you're like, ah, and it was amazing. But like all of those skills translated into like what actually pays my bills. Like it's wild to even think about.
It it
So
it it, it really is. When I was a kid, my dad who came over when he was but a child. My grandfather came over to America in 1908, had to work in America to be able to earn enough money to send for my grandmother and his son, my father, to come over
wild.
in 1911. Um, but my father would look at me reading comic books, and I was limited in what comics I could buy when I was a kid. Gold Key was okay. Classic Comics was okay. Um, Classic Comics, for those people in the audience that don't know, would give you comic book versions of things like the Odyssey, yeah, those kind of adventure stories. That's how we, at least my generation, was first exposed to them. But Gold Key Comics had all of these great characters, including Turok. And my dad would look at me reading the comic books and say, "From this, you're going to make a living." And I know my dad's, watching from on high. But yeah, Dad, it worked out pretty well for me.
I had no idea. So the first time I ever heard of Turok was on Nintendo 64 when they released Turok Dinosaur Hunter, and I murdered lots of dinosaurs with machine guns and rocket launchers and shit. But I had no idea it was a comic. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, it started out as a comic about two Native Americans, that fell through into the land of the dinosaurs, and was a long running comic book on that. Yeah, it was really cool. Um, and that also really says a lot about what the gaming industry is.
Yeah.
That things live on through us, that they become, part of our memories, that, the comics are gone. I believe that the comic book brand went to Valiant Comics. I'm not sure about that, but I know ultimately we had to work with DreamWorks, to get the Turok rights, and
Oh,
that was a long process. Unbeknownst to us, they were being acquired, by NBC.
oh,
So, uh, that's been so. Look, I'm a guy who had a background in business, background in accounting, and in my other life, I had a love of history. So when
gotcha.
when Night Dive came up, and now I'm working on all of those things in one, including working with Steve, to untangle property rights, who's got what contract, how do you get classic games back out to the audience. Uh, just one of the things that I need to hold forth on is the paper age compared to the digital age. So when everything is digitized as it is, hopefully now, and I have a cautionary for our industry on that. But when everything is digitized, there are two things. One, you have a digital copy of it. Two, someplace there is a record of that digital copy, right? That's really different than paper contracts. It was the one that got away, the white whale that we never did get. We did some cool stuff with Warner Brothers. We were able to do Blood, first as an improved version of it, and now as a fully caxified version. Um, um, but the one that is stuck in legal limbo because of all the parties involved is No One Lives Forever. And the issue, the challenges with it is that we know that the game was made by Monolith. Monolith is part of the WB. But the question is, there were other companies that provided the distribution, that were the publishing. Who's got what rights? And what rights
Right.
did people have that expired? And back to what I said originally about there not being a record, you know what contracts you have, but you don't know what contracts
You
could
don't have.
have.
Yeah.
Right. And so, we've been through this. I mean, it's not due to a lack of effort on the part of Night Dive. But it's one of those games that's complex. I did say that I'm gonna do something really preachy on this.
Okay.
Working at Night Dive, we've gotten to work with some of the great people. I got to have sit down chats, the last year or so with Warren Spector, with Paul Neurath, with John Romero, Nigel Lowry, Shams Georgiani, Kevin Cloud, who was one of the original guys, back in the Doom shareware days. We got to chat with them, and we've in many cases, we've asked them for what personal records they might have, back of the napkin concept art stuff. um
Yeah.
and where it's possible, we include that with the games that we've remastered, so you really get that slice of history along with the game. Here's my cautionary tale. You find out also that there were things that people would love to have that got thrown away, that just nobody saw that there was any value to it.
Sure.
Okay, that original high res graphics got lost. Source code for games just can't be found. We've worked with companies where the backup was done on magnetic tape, and that tape is now decayed.
Right.
So yes, there is a backup. It's just nothing can be read from it. Anyhow, my cautionary tale is I don't think that the modern industry.
Larry, your
It's
audio went.
yeah, yeah. Let me get that back. Better. Test one, two, three.
Yep, we're back in business.
Good. Okay. Sorry, that wasn't me. That was Zoom that did that. Our internet lords and masters.
Yeah, yeah, I
Uh,
get it.
the AI decided I knew it wanted he wanted to click that button. But I just don't think that today's developers are doing a whole lot better job about preserving everything.
Yeah.
And and
Sure.
and I just want to tell people, I mean, at some point, that game that you're released at some point we'll be asking the question, who's going to remaster GTA 6? Who's
Ooh,
gonna,
yeah.
that's going to happen. That we'll be looking at, I don't know, the Xbox with only two letters capitalized, or the PlayStation 27, whatever it is. But that their hardware dependencies in the game will get lost. That said, it's not just the game, it's the people behind it. That really cool mechanic. How did you think of it? What was the chat session like the night that you decided to implement that?
Yeah.
Um, that's the stuff that we all need.
We've been doing a little bit of that on this podcast. We've had some people come in and talk about how, things have come together and like the evolution of their game. You know, um, I had James Saunders on, who was the creative director of Borderlands, and we got to talk
Yeah.
about how that style came together with like that 3D comic art with heavy line art, but still 3D, and like, and then all the little things about it. But yeah, I think that stuff's priceless. It really is, because the evolution of this craft and this is basically just a new way of storytelling that
You,
human beings have done since the beginning of time. So
funny about that, Carl, because that is you didn't intend that, but that is a perfect segue to to answering the question that you haven't asked me yet. So now that you're retired, what are you doing?
that
Um,
was on the list. So
so let's
perfect.
cut to that. I'm actually I have been doing a series of presentations. This is, I guess, the third in what will probably be a trilogy. The first one is entitled "So You Want to Be an Indie," and it's made to make people a bit uncomfortable. If you've decided that indie is the way to go in the United States, the first thing that you have to ask yourself is, what are you going to do about health insurance? See my earlier discussion on that. But you're probably going to lose that. You're going to have to start thinking about those things on your own. That said, it's So You Want to Be an Indie, and it talks about steps and it talks about building community. I give some basics. The next one on there is about building your personal brand. Carl, given what you do for a living, I don't have to I have to belabor that one. But there are a lot of developers out there. I mean, let's face it, our industry attracts people who are not outgoing.
Sure.
How can you tell a how can you tell if an indie developer is an extrovert? He looks at your shoes. Okay, so there's that.
That's terrible, but
But
very true. Yeah,
but I talk about why you need to get out there and why you need to have a personal brand. It is not it does not harm the company that you work for, their corporate brand. In fact, if anything, it elevates it.
sure.
But you also need it because the day might come when you, oh, I don't know, retire or get laid off, like those things would ever happen in our industry. So
Right.
the last one
Never.
that I'm doing, the most current one is on storytelling. Anytime you make a video game, you're telling a story.
100%.
Anytime you go for a job interview, you're telling your story. Anytime you do a pitch in front of developers, in front of publishers to get your game into development, you're telling a story. And what I talk about is intentional storytelling.
Yeah.
About answering the question may not be the question that they asked, but the question that they want to have an answer to. What does your prospective employer want to hear from you? They want validation that you can do the job and that you're going to stay around and that you're not going to be a problem for them. So probably that anecdote about how your last boss was a real moron, you should save for a non-interview.
Yeah.
Um, and when I tell people about, I mean, look, a lot of indies today, especially, are going out there trying to pitch people for funding. And they talk about their presentations, and the first question they ask them is, "What do you think the person on the other side wants to hear?" I get this. I mean, I don't mean to make fun of people, but I get this moment of, well, they didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
And the answer is they want to hear that you're going to make them a lot more money than they have now.
Yes.
And so
Unequivocally.
you need to address that in your story. That's the piece of the story you're leaving out and they're waiting to hear. So I do those kinds of things. I'm very active. We talked about the IGDA, and for anyone that might not know what it is, it's the International Game Developers Association. And if you're a game developer and you're looking for work, you're one of the thousands of people that can't find a job, that are trying to make connections. I heartily encourage you to join the IGDA. It's the best, easiest place to start building a network that you didn't know you need, but you clearly do.
Yeah.
So there's that. And there are branches all over the world and at universities. You can find them pretty easily. Over the next, I guess month and a half on June 9th. I'm doing this presentation on storytelling for the Jewish and Gaming special interest group, part of the IGDA, and it will be streamed. On July 2nd, I'm going to do a slightly updated version of it for the LGBTQ plus special interest group, another group that I support in the IGDA. I also support Black in Games. I pretty much support anybody. I'm ready to say I do weddings, bar mitzvahs, bongo jams, speciality.
I love
Um,
it.
so there's that. And then June 24th, we have the next meeting of the IGDA in Las Vegas here. Our last meeting, Greg Westfall, who's a really talented artist, art director, did a great presentation on the business of art. It was based on his experience, and Grover Wimberly, who is a producer for Nightdive Atari, but also is a founder and runs his own independent game company, did a post-mortem on one of his titles. So, I mean,
Oh,
those are
wow.
the kinds of things, you would read it online, but this way you get to be in the room with the person that did it and can ask them questions. Um,
Yeah,
and it's the best way that I can give back to the gaming industry for all that they gave me.
that's
I've
beautiful.
said this. I was a nerdy kid. I mean, no surprise, most of the people in our industry were, but I was a nerdy kid like before it was fashionable to be a nerdy kid, you know.
Yep.
And I never got to sit at the cool kids table. I never hung out with, the football players. I mean, or certainly not with the cheerleaders. I mean, never had any, never had that sense of feeling cool. And the first time that I went to QuakeCon and walked through the room wearing a night dive hoodie and t-shirt, and people just yell out the names of games that they want you to remaster. I mean, no context, no, hey, you work for Night Dive, I want you to just yell out Aliens versus Predator. I mean, just that was great. The first
I
time
bet.
that I went to Gamescom, and in Germany, I mean, it was just such a cool experience. You know, we 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 had a cosplayer for doing Shodan at Gamescom. Our line, it was the first time people could play the System Shock remake, and the line for it was so long that another company, a AAA company, complained that people couldn't see their booth because our line stretched past it. That was really cool. I mean, that was the first time that I felt like I was sitting at the cool kids table.
I bet, and you definitely verifiably were, and it was upsetting the people that were AAA and spending all their money, and no one really cared about their booth. Wow, Larry, that was a cool story, man. Look, this conversation went exceedingly fast, and we are wrapping up on time, or heading towards time here. But you know, is there anything or anyone in your career that you haven't shouted out yet, like that you would want to shout out to the audience? Maybe a mentor, a valuable resource, or favorite client?
I it was actually a partner. Uh, uh, Steve Kick and I first met when I cold called him. So I told my story from Stardock to GameStop, laid off from GameStop, and then I decided that I might want to move to Portland. Did a search on game companies in Portland, and Nightdive Studios was the second one. And I called Steve up. And from the moment that we had our first calls, and funny thing, I think I cold emailed him when I said calls. I feel dirty even saying this. We were using Skype at the time. It was that far back. Um,
I love
uh,
it. Hey, I met
so
my
so
wife on MySpace, so I can't throw shade at old technology.
we're not judging, right? But we had a beautiful relationship, and we did some amazing stuff over 12 years. And then I had spent a lot of time thinking about how I wanted to end things up in my career.
Yeah.
I had cold called Steve, but the first time that we met in person was at GDC 2014. So GDC has always been like a marker of an anniversary. And when it came time to wrap things up, Wade Rosen, CEO of Atari and a friend, and Ethan Zubek, my fellow sales guy.
Yeah.
They let me have they let me go out under my own terms. That I would have GDC. That most reporters would listen to me talking about our next game, Sing, coming out. And some selected few would know that this was my last one. Uh, and that on literally the last day, I streamed a farewell message to the industry with my buddies Mario Kroll, who introduced us, Carl.
Yep.
Mario over at Uber Strategist PR,
Shout out to
and
Mario.
and Jay Powell over at Indie Game Business and the Powell Company. Yeah, I got to go out on my own terms to celebrate with the people that were most important to me.
That's incredible, man. What a journey you've been on, and the things you're continuing to do and give back and help the community are all beautiful, man. And as I've been doing this, segment where I'm interviewing a lot of people in the game space, numerous people, not just Mario and Corbin Reeves, and I just like you come up all the time. You're just everywhere. Like everybody loves Larry Kuperman. So maybe that's the title of your podcast where we kick off and.
I did one from startup to beloved. But that was the Nightdive story one. Yeah, thank you, Carl. And
I love it.
And I will tell you, just in my experience, which is a quarter century in this business, the the people in the games industry are just some of the nicest people in the world.
Yes.
And we really need to preserve not only the games but the people that made the games.
I love that. And that's a wonderful place to wrap it up, Larry. I love that. So if people they can still go to Nightdive Studios and check out all the stuff that's going on at Nightdive, but you have since retired from there. So if people are listening to this podcast and would love to, follow up with you, what's the best place for them? Where should they go? How should they reach out?
I'm still on that platform formerly known as Twitter. I like
Okay.
to refer to it as my X. I'm on Blue Sky and I'm on LinkedIn, and may surprise people to know that I accept the majority of my connection requests on LinkedIn and always take the time to say, is there something I can help you with?
Well, that's beautiful, Larry. Always giving back, man. I love that. All right, Larry. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And to everyone else, if this episode sparks something for you, share it with a friend or colleague, and we will see you all next time. Take it easy.
Cheers. Thank you, Carl.
We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.